All right, all right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Peter Alessandria. Welcome to the workshop. And I invite you for the next 90 minutes to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome as well. We're going to jump in right now with, let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. So we're going to start with some announcements. We'll give people a chance to introduce themselves if they'd like to. If they're new, you don't have to, but you can if you want. And I especially want to hear about any victories, any significant happenings that have happened for you in the past week or so. So you have an opportunity to share that. Then we're going to go into our topic discussion for about 20 to 30 minutes. We'll take a 5-minute break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the exercises, the assignment for this evening, and we'll also have a chance for Q&A. And then we'll have everything wrapped up by about 9:30 or so. So welcome. Is there anybody who's new who would like to say hello, to introduce yourselves, or just say hi, let us know that you're out there? You can unmute yourself if you want.
Hi, I'm Cindy MM.
Hi, Cindy.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, I have on my shirt. Woohoo!
Actually, Cynthia, we can't see, we only see your profile photo.
Now you can see my shirt.
Now we can. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. What an amazing shirt.
I love it. Thank you.
It looks great on you. Thank you. Which reminds me, folks, I do have merch available on my website, t-shirts, hats and t-shirts, if you're interested. So Cynthia, I'm so glad you're here. Anybody else want to say hi real quick? Or anybody have any victories they want to share? Anything that would inspire us to be bigger than we think we are?
Hi, this is Mira. I just wanted to say hello. I just got on and I was muted. So I'm just hearing everyone right now. It's good to hear your voice, Peter. And
Yeah.
awesome
Welcome,
that
Mira. Anybody else? Jenna, you want to say hi?
Yes, hello from Iowa. I just got out of the pool, so
Nice.
I'm all fresh and ready to go.
Awesome. All right.
Thank
So glad
you.
that you were able to make it.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. All right, good. So I'm going to ask everybody to mute their microphones. Why don't we jump into the topic for the oh, no, wait. First, we have some announcements. So for anybody who doesn't have a copy of the book yet, I have a workshop. I have a discount code for you guys, the workshop participants. It's workshop 20. You just enter that at checkout. This is for the signed paperback edition of the book. And it's the last couple of weeks on this. So if you don't have a book or if you want to get one for somebody else, workshop 20, check out on the website. Also let people know that I am close to finishing the audiobook. I'm going to play an excerpt for you guys tonight from the audiobook. It is available right now for pre-order for $9.99. That's almost half off the regular price. It's going to be about 9.5 hours, and on both the audiobook and on the paperback book, if you guys don't love it, just let me know. You get your money back. It's a no-risk money-back guarantee on both. All right? So you can go to bebiggertoday.com/bookstore. Check out your books. And then I do want to let people know I am available for one-on-one coaching and or consulting for your business. So if you want to work with me directly, that's available. Or if you'd like to have me speak to your sales team, your executive management team, I'll talk to anybody. And so, and we'll help your organization be bigger than it thinks it is. All right? So just get in touch with me through the website. We'll set that up as well. All right, so we're on to the topic for this evening. Now, if you've been here the last few weeks, this should look familiar to you. We've covered this in a number of different ways. I promise this is going to be the last night that we're going to be directly dealing with this particular topic. But I think it is the most important question we can ask ourselves, and that is, who do I think I am? How do I see myself? All right, and there's a reason I feel like this is the most important question we can ask ourselves. Because in my experience and what I've seen in other people is whoever we think we are is exactly who we're going to end up being in life. Now, for some of us in some situations, that's great. All right, many of us are doing well. We have achievements. We are of service, we earn a good living. There's lots of things that we do really well. But there may be also some places in our lives where we're challenged, all right? And so for me, it's been really important to begin to identify that there are places in my life where my thinking, particularly my thinking about myself, my self-image, how I see myself, who I think I am, is not serving me, all right? So what we want to do is begin to become aware of those places in our lives where our self-image, our self-concept is not serving us, and then we want to work to begin to change that, all right? So this is about the idea that it's impossible for us to act in a way that's inconsistent with our predominant thoughts and beliefs about ourselves, all right? I've seen this play out in my life, I've seen this play out in other people's lives, and the problem is we're usually unconscious of our negative thoughts and beliefs about ourselves. I talk about this in chapter 1 in the book. You know, a lot of us got our self-image, our self-concept from the experiences we had as kids. And young children, there are some studies that suggest that our personality is formed by the time we reach first grade. Young kids are not capable of discerning and making sense of and navigating the challenging, difficult situations that many of us face as kids. And so kids are egocentric. We make everything that happens about us. Kids are also very trusting. They believe everything that they're told. So if I'm told that I'm naughty or bad or what's wrong with you or there's some negative messaging that comes in, that begins to form the foundation of who I think I am as a person. And the problem is, at least for me, I never questioned those thoughts and beliefs, and I carried those thoughts and beliefs into my adult life. So it's very important, it has been important for me to begin to identify those thoughts and beliefs about myself that do not serve me. And then once I identify them, I begin to change them, and that's what this particular workshop is about. Now, this is about as psychological as I get, but I love this. It's the idea of cognitive dissonance. All right, and that's the idea that the stress that's created when a person holds two or more contradictory beliefs about themselves or about the world around them or about other people. This creates stress, and the default, the way to deal with that, is to revert or to act in accordance with our most deeply held beliefs about ourselves. All right, so this is why it's so important. And again, for me at least, you guys have to decide for yourself whether or not this is true. For me, I was totally unaware at a conscious level of the negative thoughts that were running my life, okay? So these are some of the tools we're going to cover tonight. Let's just go back. I just want to talk a little bit more. Again, if it's your first time, I want to share a little bit more about how, frankly, how I got here, how I wrote this book, and how I'm doing what I'm doing with my life. It was in 2009, I changed careers. I was living and working in Los Angeles, and if you may remember, 2009 was the global financial crisis. And in a matter of months, I lost my law business, and I made a decision that I was going to do something more creative with my life, something I was more passionate about. And the only thing I was really passionate about at the time was photography. So I decided I was going to change my life, change my career. I was going to become a professional photographer. I was going to make something positive come out of the negative experience of the global financial crisis. And so I made that decision, and I moved my whole life back to the East Coast, and I set up shop as a professional photographer, and nothing happened. And for almost 3 years, I struggled with getting my business going. And at first I thought, well, it must be the economy. You know, the economy is still rough. And then I thought, no, it's not the economy. It's all the competition from all the other photographers out there. That's what it is. That's what the problem is. And I thought, no, maybe it's that, you know, I don't have an education in art or photography, so that must be it. I don't have a formal education. I thought, no. You know what? I don't have the latest and greatest camera equipment. That must be the problem. And finally, I realized after all of that, that the problem wasn't any of those things. The problem was not anything out there, the problem was in here. And what I found was I had a very negative self-image when it came to being a creative person. I was filled with fear, fear of criticism, fear of rejection, self-doubt, not good enough, they're not going to like me, they're not going to like my work. And those negative thoughts and beliefs that I wasn't even aware of were running my life and basically kept me paralyzed for almost 3 years. And eventually I realized, actually what was happening was, I started to run out of money, and I realized if I really want to make it as a photographer, I got to get in gear. I got to get my butt going, and I have to change some things. And so I began to, and I've been doing a lot of work on myself for many years, everything from 12-step programs to all kinds of self-help books and workshops and seminars. I mean, this book is really a culmination of almost 30 years of self-examination and trying to improve my life. And so this gave me the perfect opportunity. When I began to see that the problems weren't outside of me, the problems were how I saw myself, who I thought I was, then I began to think, well, maybe I can change that. And I began to look at where those ideas came from. And one of the most important things I did was I began to question whether or not those negative thoughts and beliefs about myself were actually true. And, but in order to do that, I had to be aware of when I was in that spiral, in that cycle of negative thinking. So I began to pay attention, especially when I was doing things related to my business, related to my art. I began to monitor my thinking, and I began to notice the voices. I began to notice the negative messages. Excuse me. And I became more aware of it, and then I began to come up with ways to counteract that, to begin to change the story that I was telling about myself. Now, the first thing I'll say is what I realized pretty quickly, and I'll say this to anybody else who can relate to this, all those negative thoughts and beliefs about myself weren't really true. It was just stuff that I had made up about myself as a result of being a 6-year-old who didn't really know what was going on, who didn't know how to deal with those, let's just say, challenging adults in my life. And, I began to see that there was really, now it was confusing because I had had experiences in my life that mirrored those thoughts. So if the thought was, I don't have what it takes, I'm not good enough, nobody's going to like me, I began to create experiences that reflected those beliefs. And then they reinforced those beliefs until I just assumed, well, that's just the way I am. That's just the way it is. I don't have what it takes to do this, or I'm not good enough to be that, or nobody's really going to like me, so why bother? And so it was like the negative beliefs created the negative experiences, and the negative experiences reinforced the negative beliefs until it just became this idea that, well, that's just the way I am. There's probably nothing I can do about it. I want to say this. I said this last week. I'll say this again. The moment you hear yourself saying or thinking, that's just the way I am, that's just the way it is, that's just the way I am, those are the thoughts and beliefs that we have to stop and question. There's a woman, a teacher, her name is Byron Katie. Some of you guys are probably familiar with her work, which is actually called The Work. And she says, one of the questions to ask ourselves in those moments is literally to stop mid-thought or whenever we catch the thought and say to ourselves out loud, is that true? Is that really true? And so, I was a bit of a lunatic at this point in my life because every time I noticed a negative thought when I was getting going with my photography business, my photography career, I would kind of stop and say, is that really true? Now, it's a good thing I live alone because I probably appeared kind of crazy in those moments, but that's what I needed to do to stop the train. The train had left the station and it was headed towards Negativesville or wherever it was going, Depression Land or wherever you want to call it. I needed to stop that train. So the first step is to become aware of when the negative thinking, the negative thoughts, the negative self-talk is coming up. And then the next thing to do is to begin to change that, all right? To begin to tell a new story about who we are, what we're capable of, what we deserve from life, who we are in the world. I had a quote on my website for a long time that said, most people talk themselves out of greatness 20 times a day. Don't be that person, all right? So let's take a look at this. So these are some of the tools that I've used. I mentioned these briefly a few weeks ago. I told you I was going to come back to them. So tonight is the night we're going to go through these. I'm going to show you examples from my own life of positive affirmations, a vision statement. I'm going to talk a little bit about the guided visualization and the meditations, but I'm not actually going to give you an example of that. I'm going to show you a vision board that I've used in the past that's been very helpful for me. And then I'm also going to show you a mind movie, all right? And I'm going to talk about each one of these as we go. Now, I want to start with the disclaimer, all right? Because things like positive affirmations, vision statements can get a bad rap, all right? And so I'm going to tell you right now, saying a positive affirmation like I'm a worthwhile person, or I make $1 million this year, or I feel younger and younger every day, which is actually a good affirmation, by the way. I'm not going to wake up tomorrow. I'm not going to say I feel younger and younger every day and wake up tomorrow and be 11 years old. All right, that's not how this works. All right, everything on this list is designed to shift our attitude by shifting our thinking. And when we shift our attitude, our actions change, and what we attract changes. And when we change what we do and what we attract, our life changes. All right? So this is not about sitting around saying a mantra and having something magically appear in my living room. The purpose of all of these is to begin to shift my attitude by changing how I see myself, moving from a negative place to a positive place. And then I take actions consistent with those positive emotions. As many of you know, you've probably heard, emotion equals energy in motion. Positive emotions, positive energy, positive actions, positive results. All right? And then the other thing I want to say specifically about affirmations, most of us, most of the day, negatively affirm our lives. You know, they're not going to like me. I don't have what it takes. You know, life is so hard. My boss is a jerk. My spouse is a jerk. My kids are jerks. You know, the government is a jerk. We're constantly reaffirming the negative. All right. And what we're talking about, again, with these tools is to reprogram that. Now, it's going to take some repetition. You know, I began to notice my thinking, and I probably had, 15, 20 negative thoughts a minute in some cases. All right, so I'm constantly reaffirming the negative. We have to use our will, we have to use our determination, we have to want a better life, and then use things like the positive affirmations consistently. It's not just I wake up on Monday, I say a few affirmations, and on Tuesday my life is different. It could take a year for my life to be different. But eventually I'm going to reprogram all those negative thoughts and beliefs that have been holding me back, that have been keeping me from my happiness, that have been keeping me from even doing something like this, guys. 5 years ago, this would not have been possible for me to sit here. Well, technologically, it wouldn't have been possible either, but to sit here and to share with you who I think I am, who I want to be in my life. All right, so let's jump in. So I'm going to start with the positive affirmations. And this is actually going to be an excerpt from the audiobook, the upcoming audiobook. Now, I promised you guys that I was going to have a list of sample affirmations available. Hopefully by next Wednesday, those will be available for download on my website. I may also make this MP3 available. So if you want to listen to it on your phone, or as a PDF if you want to read it. So let's listen to some of these. These are sample affirmations, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Actually, a lot of these affirmations are ones that I use. All right. Sample affirmations. I am safe and I am loved. I am good and valuable. There is nothing wrong with me. Wealth and abundance are mine. I am on my own side. I can trust myself to take care of myself in all situations and with all people. I am whole and healthy. It's okay for me to have a great life. My life is my own and I create it. I got this. I love my life. I have enough. There is enough. I am enough. I create positive change in the world. I can change how I see myself, and when I do, my whole life will change. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. I am already that which I seek to be. I know exactly what to do and when to do it. Everything in my life falls easily into place. I have the power to heal my body. I am getting stronger and stronger. My mind is open to the mystical. I look and feel younger and younger. I am filled with energy. I welcome miracles in my life. I see the light of God everywhere I look. I have many beautiful and loving relationships. I choose happiness. I have time, money, and energy to do all the things I want. My life is filled with love, fun, and friendship. I am one with spirit. I welcome the unexpected. My body heals quickly and easily. I thrive on new experiences. I love adventure. I am thrilled by my life. I am deeply grateful for my life. Everything I seek is seeking me. Life is easy. I love life and life loves me. I live in an abundant universe. I am totally irresistible. Things are always working out for me. Life just gets better and better and better and better. All right, so those are some affirmations that I use. They may not be right for you. They may be right for you. You can borrow some if you like the ones that you heard. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to share my vision statement with you guys. And then I also want to share my mind movie with you guys. So again, this is what we're talking about here. So the first one is the positive affirmations. Next, I'm going to share my vision statement. If you have the book, all right, this is in the appendix of the book. All right. I am an award-winning, internationally acclaimed author, speaker, filmmaker, and photographer. My work and life positively impact millions of people each year. I carry the messages of self-love and self-forgiveness and assist others in seeing themselves in new and empowered ways. I inspire everyone I meet to be bigger than they think they are. I am confident, energized, and focused. I see myself as lovable and powerful in all situations and with all people. I am kind and compassionate and quickly forgive my own and others' mistakes. I take great care of myself physically, emotionally, and mentally. I enjoy radiant health and have all the energy and vitality I need to do all the things that I want. My body feels great and supports me in all my intentions. I have wonderful, joyful relationships with family, friends, and lovers. I travel in comfort and luxury and get enough rest and personal time to keep me at my best. I have a strong connection with my higher power and set aside time each day to commune with spirit. I have deeply profound mystical experiences and move ever closer to my true self. Oh, on camera. My books are read by millions of people around the world. They make the New York Times bestseller list as well as all the best recommended reading lists. I receive top dollar as an author, teacher, and speaker. My lectures and workshops are sold out months in advance, and I'm invited to give multiple TED Talks on the subject of being bigger than we think we are. I regularly speak at commencement ceremonies, corporate events, and to philanthropic organizations. My staff and I lead dynamic and life-changing workshops, seminars, and retreats, many of which are held in beautiful resort destinations. We assist individuals and businesses in transforming their lives and bring a powerful, positive message of hope to all those we touch. our students have amazing experiences of emotional healing, personal empowerment, and spiritual growth. Everyone I work with values my talents and abilities, and I'm not afraid to ask for what I am worth. My businesses earn me an abundant 8-figure income each year, and my investments grow by a minimum of 20% each year. If I choose to retire, I enjoy an abundant stream of passive royalty income from my prior work. I am truly happy, excited, and inspired no matter what happens, and I behold myself and others in loving kindness as our journeys unfold. I am immensely grateful for the outpouring of love and encouragement I receive, as well as for the material and financial abundance my businesses provide. I see the light of God in myself and in everyone I meet. So that's my vision statement. As I said, it's in the appendix of the book. I read this every single morning out loud before I do my meditation in the morning, to the point where I almost have it memorized. And what I try to do is I try to actually experience what it would feel like to have all those things in my life. All right, now I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. And, you know, it's either this, guys, or it's waking up in the morning and saying, why bother? Nothing's going to come from this. I'm just going to be disappointed. They're not going to like me. I'm going to sound stupid. You know, all those negative. I mean, I affirm that, and that was my vision statement for most of my life. All right, so what I'm trying to do is just actually what it sounds like, which is to reprogram my conscious and my subconscious mind, to begin to see myself in a new way. All right. Third on the list is the guided visualizations and meditations. So what I have actually done is I've recorded in my own voice, not this exact vision statement, but something similar, along with some positive affirmations. Excuse me, and I have some meditation music behind that, and that's another thing I listen to on a regular basis to reprogram, to begin to create positive self-image, positive messages, empowering myself instead of disempowering myself. All right? The next is a vision board. Now, this is not new. I didn't come up with this. All right, here's my vision board. So this is one of my vision boards. This is actually an older vision board. And so what a vision board is, it's a visual representation of our goals, of our desires, of our, you know, what we want to achieve. And I actually did this vision board right when I was starting my photography business. And back in the day, what we used to have to do was actually get magazines and cut out photos from a magazine, cut out the text and all that, and then paste it on a piece of poster board, say that 3 times fast, and create a visual representation of what it is we wanted to achieve. And so this has been very helpful for me. A lot of the stuff on here has come to fruition in one way or another. Now here's the other thing. It doesn't always happen the way I think it's gonna, but it almost always happens. But I have to take responsibility from the direction of my thoughts. And again, if the direction of my thoughts is, why bother? Nothing's going to come of this. Well, guess what? Nothing is going to come of this. But if I begin to shift that attitude, I begin to take new actions. And when I take new actions, I get new results. Now, I want to point out here in particular my $10 million check. All right? Payable to me for services, for professional services. All right? Now, I don't think I'm going to wake up tomorrow and there's going to be a $10 million check in the mail. But what this does is it begins to shift my thinking. It begins to shift my attitude, and my actions follow. Now, I didn't make this up. All right? This was actually, some of you know Jim Carrey, actor, comedian. A lot of you know his story, but in case you don't know the story, here it is in a very, in a nutshell. He moved to Los Angeles back in the day from someplace, I think, in the Midwest, and he had a vision. He was going to become a professional actor, professional comedian, and he was nobody. He was like every other actor that arrives in Los Angeles, with a dream, but nobody knew who he was. He hadn't done anything at that point. And what he did was he wrote himself a check. I'm not making this up. He wrote himself a check for $20 million for services rendered in a feature film. He put that check in his wallet, and for I think 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, something like that, he carried that check around with him, and he looked at it every day, and he imagined himself working as a professional actor, professional comedian, and all of that. I think it was dated Thanksgiving, like, 1990 or something like that. And I think it was on Thanksgiving 2000, or maybe it was a couple of years earlier than that. He received a check for $20 million from Fox Studios, 20th Century Fox, for performing in, I think it was The Mask or one of those movies. And he tells this story. He said, what it was is I just saw myself as that person. I saw myself having that experience. I came back to it day after day after day after day after day until it became part of who I thought I was. And it happened. All right? Now, he worked his ass off. I've worked my ass off. It's, as I said, it's not just sitting on the couch saying a mantra and then stuff just magically appears. But what happens is all of these tools begin to shift our attitude. I keep saying this, but this is how it works. Shift our attitude, and when we have a new attitude, we take new action. And when we take new action, we get new results. Our life changes. All right. It's almost time for our break, but I want to play, so you saw my vision board. I want to play my mind movie for you guys. And then we'll take our break, and then we'll come back. You guys can share.
Until I turn to you and say, it's time to go my
All right, so that's my Mind Movie. Now, Mind Movie is actually a website you can go to if you want to create your own movie. You could do it on your phone if you have video editing software. Basically, the idea behind the Mind Movie is to take the affirmations, the vision statement, and create, with music and with text. I mean, you saw it. It actually plays back much better. It was a little slow on the tablet here. To begin to have a way to reprogram our thinking. And what also happens with that, I listen to that every morning as well, and I say the affirmations out loud. And for those of you who know Tony Robbins, for instance, Tony talks a lot about we have to change our state, all right? We have to move from, if we're depressed or if we're anxious or whatever, we have to shift our state. And every time I watch my Mind Movie, and I picked out that song myself, every time I hear that music, every time I see those visuals, it lifts my mood. It changes my state from a negative or neutral to a positive state. All right, and again, positive emotion equals energy in motion. So, now, you may be thinking what you think about all this, but I will tell you, I went from somebody doing all this stuff, I went from somebody who was terrified to show my work to anybody, to somebody who has had shows and exhibitions around the New York City, New Jersey area, somebody who never won an award for anything in my entire life, to somebody who has won more than 70 awards for my photography, from somebody who never dreamed it was possible for me to have a photo published in a newspaper, to someone who has had photos published in newspapers and magazines around the world, all right? Somebody who never thought anybody would spend money on a print of one of my photos, to somebody who has sold photos to collectors as far away as Australia, all right? So say what you will about all this, but for me at least, this stuff has helped me see myself differently. When I see myself differently, I feel differently, I take different actions, and I get different results. Boom. All right, so these were the exercises for tonight. All right, this is going to be your guys' chance to share, to respond. And so the first exercise was, and I've talked about this in the past as well, a big part of changing how I see myself has also been changing how I treat myself, moving from being my own worst enemy to my own best friend. All right, so I want to hear from you guys now. What would it look like to be your own best friend? All right, how would you speak to yourself? How would you treat yourself, etc.? And then number two, the only person whose opinion of me that matters is my own. I'm not sure if that sentence is grammatically correct, but you get the idea. So the only person whose opinion of us that matters is our own. So do you agree with that or disagree, and why? All right? So we're going to roll into a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, you guys are going to have a chance to share on all this stuff. All right? And we'll also have Q&A and whatever else we want to do. All right, we're back. I was a little quick on that. So if you're new, that song is called Love My Life by Robbie Williams. And that's another thing I do every morning. I listen to that song and I sing out loud those lyrics. All right? And again, this is all part of reprogramming, all part of seeing myself differently, all part of being bigger than I think I am. All right, so now I want to hear from you guys. So let's go back to our workshop questions. Actually, I'm going to just open it up. Anybody want to ask a question or a comment, or anybody want to actually share what they did for the assignment? Anybody? Somebody?
Hi, Peter. It's Barbara.
Barbara.
I got my lights. Yes, I got my lights back. I got my everything back.
Congratulations.
Yes, that was a horror.
We had a big storm here in the Northeast, so a lot of us were without power for the last day or two. Barbara was
So
one.
actually, right, that's probably another a lesson there, whatever. It's just uncomfortable, and I'm sure anybody feels uncomfortable with not having any electricity or anything. But yeah, these workshops are wonderful for me. I mean, it's just, I know I needed them. And I talk about, as you know, my granddaughter, and this morning something came up. I had to go over there and shower and get ready. And she was there, and I said hi, but I could tell something was wrong. And she opened up to me. And what it is that I'm able to, or I can say the things that you say back to her. And, so she doesn't want to listen. She wants to just, and this is with my granddaughter. You can't do this in everybody's life, but, you can kind of have something to give to somebody, and it does make a difference for yourself too. And so, I was in a little bit of a rush, but I did take the time to listen to her. And of course, mom and this and a boyfriend and this. And I know you know that. And I had a thought when you were talking, and I was saying that, it does seem like we're older and we are working on this now. And it gave me a thought when I saw, Caitlin, and I said, you know what? Why don't I, here I am working on her now. I mean, she's 15. Instead of waiting, because her mother is bombarding her. I mean, we know that parents do, not all parents, but parents do that. If it's not parents, it's another situation. Maybe it's your own self that does it to yourself. But I'm trying to, free her of all that stuff that we lived with for a very long time. And it feels great. It frees me. I know that too. So it is a perfect, doesn't matter, it's my granddaughter, doesn't matter. It is a perfect combination, I think, and maybe you could answer me, a perfect combination to be helping somebody and then you help yourself at the same time. And I know you talked about that.
Yeah, I think it's great, Barb. I do.
Okay.
15 years old, some of us remember what that was like.
Yeah, and your parents should be the one saying these things to you, but a lot of times they're not.
Well, here's the thing, and I say it in the book, all right? And I'm not a parent, but I will tell you I have 8 nieces and nephews, including Caitlin. And, parenting is the toughest job in the world. It's the hardest job on the planet. So I have learned to have a lot of appreciation for the job that my parents did. I have a lot of appreciation for the job that my siblings are doing with their kids. It's tough. It's really, really tough. Now, I eventually, once I get going with all of this, I would love to have workshops for parents and kids.
Yeah.
And I would love to have teenager workshops where it's just kids, teenagers, to share some of the information. Because again, like you, I think, gee, if I knew when I was 15 what I know now, I could have saved myself a lot of misery.
Yeah, a lot of time too.
A lot of time. But here's the thing, and this is true at any age, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Somebody has to want to do things differently.
Yeah.
Somebody has to want, there's this old joke, I think we have a couple of therapists on the meeting tonight. There's this old joke, how many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is 1, but the light bulb has to really want to change. Ba-dum. So, but there's truth to that. People have to want their lives to be different. So we can let them know what's available. I mean, the best thing that I've done in my own life, I know you've done this, Barb, is to be an example by applying these things in my own life, making changes in my own life, not preaching. I saw my family this weekend. We didn't talk, and they were all there, and I didn't say one thing about the book. I didn't say one thing from the book. So I'm not preaching. I'm not forcing it down anybody's throat. I'm actually, my whole mission now is to apply everything that's in here to my own life.
Okay.
Take my own advice. And then if people are interested, I'd love to spend time and talk, with one of my other nieces. I spent time with her. But she, she doesn't always want to hear it. Other people don't always want to hear it, and the truth is, I don't really know what's right for anybody else. I'm only telling you guys what's worked for me. It may or may not work for you. It may or may not work for other people in your life if it works for you. So there's a humility in that. There's a recognition that I can't fix other people's lives. It's not my job to fix other people's lives. My job is to take care of me, all right? And then bring the best of me to the other people in my life. And then if people are curious, or interested or whatever, then I'm available. But there has been, and again, I write about this in chapter 4 and chapter 5, for a long time there was an arrogance that I had, which said, I know better, and I know how to fix your life. And it was codependency 101, where I was giving unsolicited advice to people, how they could fix their lives and all of that. And in the meantime, my life was a shambles. So I'm kind of over that, and I just, I just have a respect for, wherever people are at. The only thing the only thing I really have to do in all my relationships, and I mention this every time there's a workshop, is chapter 7. And the title of chapter 7, if you don't know, see if we can get on this camera. Hopefully you can see it.
It's the F word?
It's the F word.
Okay.
Forgiveness.
Yeah.
So that's my job. And then if I can be of assistance, I'm there. I'll do the best. But here's the other thing too. Talking on the wrong camera again. I have to take care of myself in all those situations. It's been very easy for me in the past to get enmeshed in other people's problems and then feel resentful when they didn't take my great advice, or when I allowed myself to get sucked into the drama, or whatever. So
Okay,
my
so
job,
I will turn it around, and I understand you said that, maybe too much advice, don't throw it. I only had a few minutes, but I will remember what you said. And the first assignment is, I need to step back and say, okay, I need to be my own best friend. I need to talk to myself. I need to do for myself. And that's as important as the other thing.
probably more important, but yeah.
Probably more important. So your own best friend is,
Well, tell me, what does that look like for you? What is being your own best
to
friend
be your
look
own
like
best
for
friend?
you?
I don't know. You said that, and don't know.
Well, there you go. So that's your assignment for next
Okay.
week. You're
All
going
right.
to tell us. You're going to tell us what it looks like to be your own best friend.
Best friend. Yeah, I have more time to work on that than I did before in my life. A lot of times people don't have the time. They have families and kids and this and that. And again, that doesn't matter. I have. So I will work on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb.
You're welcome.
Who else? I want to hear from all you guys.
Peter, this is Mira.
Mira, hello.
Hi. I was just wondering, I had dropped off because I got a call. What was the first assignment, the first question that you asked for the workshop that you sent on the email?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So I can answer that. So my answer is that I am my cheerleader and coach, like I am to my other action partners and people that I'm in partnership with. And so, my friends, just being my best friend means a lot of what you said, and I remember what you said in certain meetings where it's really about being kind, gentle, compassionate, forgiving, loving, and allowing myself to make mistakes and seeing that as the path to on the journey. And just seeing everything that I'm doing as an action to a better place. And so that would be me being my best friend. It's not a perfect
Beautiful.
answer. It's cool. It's progressive.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it. Great. So good to hear your voice, Mira. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I say. I say, I talk about being my own biggest cheerleader, being my own biggest advocate, being the one who encourages me instead of knocking me down. And it's so interesting because when I started doing that for myself, other people started doing that for me. It was like I was attracting a different energy, and people were responding differently. So that's great. Perfect. Who else?
Cindy? Yeah, go
Cindy.
ahead. Thank
Yes,
you.
please.
Thank you so much for tonight. My own best friend would demonstrate unconditional love and positive affirmations and accept me as I am and see the positives in me and focus on the good instead of the imperfections. May perhaps the taking care of what comes out of me and what comes into me, the care of my body, making decisions and sticking to them, and then if not able to renegotiate them when needed, to accept responsibility for my own choices and listen to myself, support myself. You get the idea. Let go of the negatives and acknowledge the accomplishments that I have co-participated in. Be creative and accept those accomplishments and delight in them. And delight in friendships and relationships. My husband and I are going to be 21 years married, and this is my third husband, and I had a female spouse for 14 years in there too. So 21 years is a long time. So it's wonderful. So to celebrate this and to celebrate and appreciate the joy in me and expand on it. And you have certainly made a difference in my life in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. That's great. That's beautiful. One of the things I want to say was unconditional love, right? Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is entitled From F-E-A-R to L-O-V-E. And so I talk in there about unconditional love, all right? Now, I'm going to boil it down real simple. F-E-A-R to L-O-V-E. For me, so I really thought about, what is unconditional love? What does that mean? And it's like I got it. There are no conditions when I withhold my love for myself. And the very short definition that I like is to be willing to love myself when I least like who I'm being. All right? Because there are times when, for instance, having my own business or writing this book or whatever, there are times when I say, gee, I really should be doing this right now, or I should be doing that, and I'm not doing it. And that becomes an opportunity either for me to love myself or for me to hate myself, beat myself up, make myself wrong. And I used to think, oh, I have to be hard on myself, otherwise I'll never get anything done. But that's not true. It's not the way it works, at least for me. So for me now, unconditional love is being willing to love myself, and by the way, other people, when I least like who they're being, when I least like who I'm being. And that's tough, man. I mean, there are days, I'm so used to beating myself up for my imperfections, for my mistakes and all of that. But that has been that has been huge for me, because what happens is, I want to hear from everybody else. So I'm just going to say this real quick. Again, in chapter 4, I talk about how I started making cold calls for my commercial photography business. And the cold calling was very stressful. I had so much anxiety about it, and it took me like a year to even start doing it. And then I would only do like 1 or 2 calls a day, and before every phone call, I would sweat and I would shake. I was so anxious, I was so nervous, and I sounded like a fool on the phone. And then when I got off the phone, I would beat myself up. You should have said this, you sound like an idiot, nobody's going to want to hire you, the whole thing. And what happened was, in 2 years of cold calling, nobody ever hung up on me. People more than once, people would refer me to somebody else. They weren't interested, but they would give me the name and phone number for somebody else and say, why don't you call this person? The point is, they were all really nice. Nobody ever yelled at me. Nobody hung up on me. But before, during, and after every call, I was beating up on myself. I was rejecting myself. I was beating myself up for all my imperfections. And what I found was it was the self-recrimination. It's good for a close-up. It was the self-recrimination that was creating all the fear and anxiety that I was feeling. It wasn't the situation. It wasn't the other people. And that was great news, because then it was like, oh, so this is the second question. The only person whose opinion of me that matters is my own. Now that's great when I have a good opinion of myself, and not so great when I don't. But what I realized was, what I was afraid of was my own criticism. It was my own rejection, and that's what was literally causing the anxiety, the fear, the sweating, the shaking, the knot in my stomach. So I don't know how I got to that. Oh, so self-recrimination, self-love. There's two sides of the same coin, and being willing to be my own best friend instead of my own worst enemy. And so beating myself up never makes me a better person, ever. It only makes me more afraid to do the things that I have to do to move forward in my life. And what I want to do is, by being my own best friend, by practicing unconditional love, loving myself when I least like who I'm being, I'm making it safe enough for me to take all those actions that are so scary. All right, who else? Thank you, Cynthia.
Peter, it's
Michelle.
Michelle. I have a quote here that a family member had given to me, and it's a tattoo I have on myself that sort of, I guess, brought out her finding this saying, and it says, "I am wonderfully broken, perfectly imperfect, beautiful in all my flaws. Altogether, I'm a beautiful disaster." And I look at it and I'm like, that's not positive at all.
Well, I mean, you can look at it in two different ways. I mean, in one way, it's an acknowledgement of that fact that we often are imperfect. We often do make mistakes and all of that. And a beautiful disaster is better than, an effing disaster or whatever. But here's the thing. I talk about this throughout the book. We get to decide what everything means. We get to decide, we get to frame something as a disaster or as a learning experience. I said this last week. The Thomas Edison, story of Thomas Edison. Okay, it took him 10,000 tries to invent the light bulb. And when he was interviewed about it, he said, "I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that didn't work." All right? So we're making all of this up. It's like he chose not to characterize that as a failure. He chose to characterize that as something positive in a way that would help him to continue to move forward. Believe me, if this guy was into beating himself up for his failures and his mistakes, he would have never, nobody would try 10,000 of anything. So the point is, we're making all of this up. There's no objective standard of what's a failure, what's imperfect, what's not good enough. So we get to tell a different story about all of that. And what I said last week is, we give everything all the meaning that it has for us. The world, even our, quote, failures, and, I hate to say it, our successes, are all meaningless until we give them the meaning that they have for us. But that's beautiful, because that's how we create our lives. When we decide what something means, when we decide who we are in relation to the challenges we have in our life, that's when things change. That's when we become creators rather than reactors. Notice, I don't have it, I'll make a slide for next week. Creator versus reactor, when we see the letter C differently, it changes everything. We go from being a reactor to a creator. It's the same word, we just move the C around. So when we see clearly, I didn't make that up, but I like that. So yeah, you know, I'm a beautiful disaster. If I can say that with love, if I can say that in an affirming way, it wouldn't be my first choice, but you know, it could be worse.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Who else?
Hi, it's Jenna from Iowa.
Hello,
Yes,
Jenna.
and so I did not do written exercise. I intend to this week. I treat myself the way I would want to be treated as a friend, and also how I treat friends in kindness and care and thoughtfulness. And I can do that today. I do a lot of self-care. I live by myself, I work by myself, so I spend a lot of time, and so these last couple of months has afforded me or given me the opportunity to develop some more of these skills.
Beautiful. That's great. Now, how is that different than you may have been in the past? Or is it different?
I guess I just was not as accepting, and so having this kind of shut in, it's like I could fight it and fight it and fight it until I said, okay, I surrender, you know, and then I can be in acceptance.
Great,
Hmm.
great. Well, I
So
mean,
fighting kind of being alone with myself, and I think that's a real key. It is realizing that one can be their own best friend, and so having that time and that space to create that relationship.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And it's also the willingness to do it. And for most of my life, see, most of my life I wasn't interested in being my own best friend. I was interested in making other people responsible for how I felt about myself.
Hmm.
And then being angry at them when they didn't treat me the way I wanted them to treat me.
Right. Even they should know how to treat you
Oh, of
without you
course.
even saying, yeah, yeah.
Of course.
And they should know what you want
Of course. And I
and what
shouldn't
you
have to
need.
and I shouldn't have to say anything.
Right.
That was the insanity of my life. Now, you know, the last 4 months, 5 months for most of us, you know, has been a disruption of our regular routines, our regular schedules. And I totally relate to what you just said, Jenna, in that it's like, now I work for myself, and I work alone, and I work from home. So in some ways, things hasn't changed that much because I do spend a lot of time by myself.
Hmm.
But there has been a huge opportunity for me to practice exactly what you were saying, which is surrendering, you know, beginning to trust. Because we talked last week, we talked about stress. And in my experience, stress comes when I focus on things I don't have any control over, and when I see myself as powerless in that
Hmm.
situation.
Hmm.
And, you know, if anything describes this current crisis with the virus, you
Hmm.
know, I have no control over the virus. I have no control over my fellow citizens. I have no control over my government. I have no control over the people on social media. And I'm powerless over all of that, you
Right.
know? And so it's
And
been,
also having the uncertainty, the not knowing,
right.
you know, not having the control on one hand, but yet the uncertainty of what's going to happen, when is it going to happen. So it's all of the unknown. And so again, this has given us an opportunity to surrender to having to not know, and the overwhelming anxiety that comes from that uncertainty. So it's been a great exercise. And I'm
Well,
doing a really good job, Peter.
congratulations. That's great. I love
There.
it. That's great. Now, I didn't look at it the first 3 or 4 weeks. I didn't look at it as a great opportunity. I was like, we're fucked. We're done. I'm done. And the uncertainty that you were talking about, for me, that's what gives rise to the feeling of powerlessness.
Yes.
Now,
Right.
now, for somebody who has lived most of my life trying to control everything and everybody, to recognize that I don't have control, and this is going to be my next book. My next book is going to be about my relationship with something greater, with a higher power, with God, whatever you want to call it, because that's the only place I can go. I
Right.
can't rely on myself anymore for that feeling of, actually, you know what? I can rely more and more on myself, not to have certainty, but to trust in something greater, to trust in the bigger picture, to trust that I'm going to be okay. And I got to tell you guys, nothing in my life looks the way I think it's supposed to right now for me to be happy or safe or secure.
Right.
And I am happy, safe, and secure in a situation where, in March, I thought it was going to be. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are suffering. I know there's a lot of people who are struggling. I'm not commenting on any of that. I'm just saying, for me, I can see that, things have worked out in a way that I couldn't foresee.
Right.
Even my financial situation, being self-employed, this was like the worst case scenario for me, and yet things were working out. So it's like beginning to have trust, to have faith in the bigger picture, to be able to live with the uncertainty. I say this, I added an addendum to the second edition that I'm working on of the book, where I talk about dealing with the coronavirus crisis. And I mentioned that, it's probably good that I don't know what's happening next, because if I knew what was happening next, it would probably be more of the same. And I personally believe that, a lot of what we've been doing as a society, I don't want to talk about any of this other than to say I feel like I need to make some changes, and I feel like it would benefit society at large to make some changes. And so not knowing what's coming next is the opportunity to write a different story.
Yep. Agreed. Even and it's a daily surrendering and turning over to not knowing, and sometimes it's hourly and moment by moment. That surrender for me has been the key, and the trust in and what can I do just for today, or what's the next right step, and that's
Yes.
bringing me along. And I'm really grateful that you're doing this, because this fits in for me so well. So it's going to be a real touchstone and a keystone for my pivoting into transitioning into a new career. So
Well, your book is going out tomorrow. It's all wrapped up and ready to go, signed.
woohoo! Thank you.
And what I was going to say was, the thing that has carried me through is what I've been talking about here. I've had to change who I think I am, how I see myself. It's like I have to rely on something greater, but I also have to change who I think I am in relation to what's happening right now.
Yes.
And that's true in every situation that challenges me. It's like it's an opportunity for me to see myself differently. I say this in the book. I say this in every workshop. The problem is never the situation. The problem is always and only how I see myself in that situation. And it turns out that's really good news, because usually the only thing I can really change is myself, how I see myself. I don't have control over the situation. Like I just described, I don't have control over other people. I don't have control over the virus. I don't have control over all that stuff, but I do have control so in chapter 3, the title of chapter 3 is True Power. The way I define true power is the ability to consciously choose and or change my thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And when I exercise my true power, I think of myself differently. I feel about myself differently. I think about the world. And here's the other thing. When I change how I see myself, I change how I see the world.
And the world sees you different than, like you said, and people relate
That,
differently
that
because
actually
the
happens too.
energetics has shifted.
Yeah, it's amazing. Other people, I've been trying to change other people my whole life. And it wasn't until I changed that other people started to change. And when I stopped trying to change them and I stopped trying to fix them or control them, and I looked at myself, and this was, in the late 90s, I got involved in Codependence Anonymous, which is a 12-step program, and it saved my life. It really taught me, to focus on myself and to learn to love myself and to be my own best friend and all of that stuff. So when I change, and now the people in my life are different, but I haven't done anything to them. I've done something to me.
Right. And the
All
same
right,
people can, yes.
we have a few
And
minutes left.
and
Go ahead. Say what you want to say, Jen, and then I want to see if there's anybody else who wants to share.
yeah. So it can be different people rotating into our lives, or it can be the same people that seem to shift and relate with me differently.
So my relationship with my mother sucked for most of my adult life. And when I changed, I just talked to her today. I actually talked to her like 5 times today. I'm selling her furniture. She's redecorating her house. I'm selling her furniture on Craigslist. She doesn't know how to use the computer, so I'm doing the whole thing for her. And we talk like 5 times a day, and we're like best friends.
That's
You
cool.
know? And we had a horrible relationship for most of my adult life. And it wasn't until I started taking responsibility for my own feelings, for my own thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And I ended up, I stopped putting all that on her.
Right.
And it freed her up to be who she is. She didn't have to be defensive anymore. She didn't have to feel guilty about all the things she didn't do right as a parent.
Yep.
And it changed the whole relationship.
Yes, I can identify with that because that also happened with, I created that with my mother before she passed, and it was really satisfying. It was like a different person. I must have been a different person, but she was like a different person from back then. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jenna. Janet, are you ready to go? Do I see you? Ready to go there?
Yep. Yeah. So the question of what would I do differently if I was my own best friend?
How would you treat yourself? How would you think about yourself?
So how would I treat myself? So the biggest thing that came to me is fear, because I guess if I could be my own best friend, then that best friend could probably contain the fear, help me be okay with the fear, and then that would allow me to do things that I don't follow through with doing, that then lead to me doing a lot of that negative self-talk, and it also leads me to just get busy with things that are just not producing joy in my life, and so that's what I think, is that somehow having a best friend might be that support, and acceptance. And I liked what you were talking about. Where was it? The unconditional love, when I loving myself and others when I least like how I am being. So I could see how that's really more of how I need to show up for myself, is practicing unconditional love. Now, I've come a long way. If you met me 40 years ago, my level of self-loathing was like off the charts. So, but there's still a lot of growth that needs to happen in this area. Yeah.
Great. Beautiful.
So,
I get it. It's like it's easy to love somebody, including myself, when they're doing what we want them to do. You know, it's easy to love myself when I'm doing all the things I think I'm supposed to do. But the real challenge, obviously, is when, you know, somebody shows us the worst of themselves. You know, and I don't want to get into specifics, but there are people in my life that I love very, very much, and it's challenging for me, especially the teenagers I'm thinking of. You know, it's challenging for me when what they're showing me is something that I don't like. You know, and I'm sure I say it in the book. You know, there's a point, I think, I would believe. Again, I'm not a parent, but I believe, you know, most parents reach a point where they have to make a decision about how they can love a child when they hate who that child is being. You know, you know, I don't know if I'm making that up or not, but
No, I had to just do that with my son just yesterday. I had to really be tough, and because I knew I had to do it. I had to do it as being a good parent, and it was gnarly, but it's good. I just wanted to say one more thing, which I'm trying to grasp, which is that I won't, unless I have that unconditional self-love. How do I articulate this? I won't even be able to do those things because that self-talk, like you talk about, gets in the way of me doing it. So it's like I have to have that gentleness. To just not look at it as a failure, like you said, to just be able to just move through it. So that's helpful.
Great. So again, I want to remind you guys, this is a really high bar we're setting here, all right? Loving myself unconditionally, or loving anybody unconditionally, especially when we don't have a lot of practice with that, especially when we have, some of us are a little older, you know, we have years of relating to ourselves and other people in a certain way. It's not easy to do this, all right? So then it becomes, can I forgive myself for not loving myself? Can I forgive myself for hating myself is basically what it comes down to. Can I forgive myself for not forgiving myself? And when I can do that, and more I'm able to do that, not always, but more and more, that changes everything. So, and in that moment, I'm actually loving myself unconditionally, you know? Now, again, we're almost done for tonight, so can't get into all this other stuff, but, you know, I talk about in the book, again, in chapter 7, I talk about having healthy boundaries. You know, that's the way we take care of ourselves in relationships, is by having boundaries. I talk all about that in there. I'm working on the second edition of the book, and one of the things I'm adding is a family contract, a contract between a parent and a teenager. So it's not when, you know, loving another person, like you were just saying, Janet, doesn't mean we let them off the hook, or, you know, people still have to be accountable for their behavior. They have to be accountable for their actions, their reactions. But we can approach it, I can approach it in a totally different way. And that's a lot of what's in the first edition, even more in the second edition. And that's why I devote so much of the book to this idea of forgiveness. You know, what does it really mean to forgive somebody? Doesn't mean, I'm just going to give you the preview. It doesn't mean we let them off scot-free. We don't let them off the hook. It's not like we suddenly become a doormat for somebody else's inappropriate behavior. So we can still take care of ourselves, have healthy boundaries, and love and forgive the other person. In fact, the only way I can really forgive somebody is if I take care of myself first and make sure that I'm okay in that situation. Otherwise, it's just words. But we'll talk more about that later. So anything else you want to say, Janet? You good? Okay, Janet's good. Anybody, we're getting close. Lynn, you want to say something? Anybody want to say something to wrap us up here?
Hi, can I just check in, Peter? It's Helena. I came in late, sorry.
It's okay.
But yeah, when I came in, I heard something that I really need to hear about the fear, you know, and just briefly speaking, yesterday I did this thing called the PRG, which you probably know, for the first time in a long time. And I did it with the people in England because, I'm in Seoul, and, with like New York, it's only 13 hours time differences, but with California, it's 16 hours. So I've been doing a lot of my work with the people in UK, because in UK, it's only like 8 hours between, like here and there, like only 8 hours. So anyhow, like my take on was that because I have this trauma, like trauma of the crime, financial crime, some people try to, cheat me and steal my money in the past. And I experienced this really severe trauma while I was sitting with these two people online. And I don't know them, but, we kind of know each other from these meetings. And I felt this horrific, like, this fear rising. I just felt like these two people are going to just suddenly turn into evil people and attack me. But of course, that didn't happen. And it's never going to happen because they're like so far away. It was just all happening in my head. It was all happening in my head, with my imagination, with my old memories and everything. But, I felt like so relieved when you were just sharing about, what, these fears and all these things, and, how we can overcome, and how I have to look at me as like how much, I'm critical of myself, and, how much am I willing to forgive myself and all of that. So I'm sorry, my voice is kind of weird because it's kind of morning here and I'm just sort of exhausted. But anyway, I just wanted to say that, and thank you. I'll try to come in next week a little bit early. Thank you so much for your service. It's always very
Thank you.
inspiring. Yeah.
Thanks, Helena. I get it. I totally get it. I totally understand. And, that's one of the things. It's like, can I forgive myself for being so afraid? I talk about, in the book, I had a huge fear for most of my life of public speaking. I was terrified to be in front of an audience, to be on a stage or whatever. Again, to the point where I would shake and sweat and I would just stammer, the whole thing. And I talk about how I overcame that, but one of the things I noticed was that I would beat myself up for being afraid. It was like, I thought, I'm supposed to be over that, or I'm not supposed to be afraid of anything. And that only made it worse. That was not being my own best friend. That was being my own worst enemy. And so when I began to notice that, and to forgive myself for being human, part of the human experience is to be afraid of things, to have traumatic experiences, and to be shy or to be afraid to take risks, to put ourselves out there. That's all part of the human condition. I'm not saying we shouldn't be any of those things. What I'm saying is, for me, when I notice that I am those things, it's an opportunity for me to, number one, see myself differently. I talk about in chapter 4, when I talk about fear, fear is an emotion. The definition that I like for fear is an emotional response to a perception of myself as powerless and/or unlovable in a given situation. So the emotions that I feel, the fear that I feel, is in response to a perception of myself. A perception is just how I see myself in that situation. So when I begin to change how I see myself, the fear dissipates. It changes. But the other part of the equation is to not beat myself up, not make myself wrong for being afraid in the first place, for being imperfect, for being, whatever my list of character defects is, to not beat myself up for those things. And that's, for me, that's being my own best friend. When I love myself, when I'm being judgmental, when I love myself, when I'm being critical, when I love myself, when I can't get off the couch or do anything to market my business, or I can't do, whatever I think I'm supposed to do, if I can still be nice to myself, comfort myself, esteem myself, that's a whole different, that's a game changer. Because the problem, it was like I would judge myself for being judgmental, I would criticize myself for being critical, and I would hate myself for all those other, defects, those other shortcomings, those other mistakes, those other failures. I could go on all night, but we're just about done. So anybody, I want to give somebody the last word, and then I'm going to play that song again. For those of you who are new, you're going to hear that song one more time with the lyrics. I invite you to sing along.
I
But
have a
anybody
quick
want to?
question. Oops,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Elena. Yep.
Yeah, I have a question, Peter. Just from your experience, you spoke about this, fear of a public speaking, and when we're speaking about the public, I mean, I will not get into detail, but I have a situation where, like, I'm kind of, yeah, I might have to deal with that sooner or later with this publicity thing, basically publicity of, like, let's say the whole country or something like that, like, or city, whatever. So how did you deal with that? Like a fear, it's like fear. Of course, there could be fear of criticism, but just the fear of the people knowing you, like knowing you, like who you are, and kind of like it's like as if it's getting into your personal space. It's not your personal space actually, but it's like, yeah, like how did you deal with that fear?
Well, you have the book, right? So it's I think it's chapter 1 or 2 or maybe 3.
Okay.
But here, the only person whose opinion of me that matters is my own. So when I started to change my opinion of myself, see, my fear of public speaking was I was afraid they were not going to like me. I was afraid I was going to make a mistake. I was going to sound stupid. I was not going to have anything important to say. I was going to be unattractive. I had this whole litany of things that I thought of myself that I was projecting. Chapter 5, projection. I was projecting out onto the other people. But it wasn't their opinion of me that was the problem. It was my own opinion of me. And again, I went from somebody who hated public speaking. I mean, I could not think of anything worse than being in front of a group of people. I went from that to, in 2017, I think I shared this last week or 2 weeks ago, I got invited to go to Colombia, South America, to speak at a university to their students about life in America, about life as a professional photographer. And I was only supposed to speak like 2 or 3 times. It was a week. They had an international week for their students where they had guest speakers from other countries come and speak. And I was only supposed to give 2 or 3 lectures. And I ended up giving 7 lectures at 3 different universities to like 1,500 kids. And I loved every minute of it. And I wasn't nervous, and I wasn't, it was like, I was completely transformed. And it was because I saw myself differently, because I decided I was going to be nice to myself, because I decided that even if I was imperfect, I was still going to love myself. I was still going to be nice to myself. That's the only thing that changed. And then, again, I don't have time to tell the story again, but I found out that my lectures had a really significant impact on at least one person. The way it came back to me was this very odd thing, but I found out that I really inspired somebody, one of those students, to change his life. And it was only because I got out of my own way. I stopped beating myself up. I stopped feeling sorry for myself, too. It was like self-pity is could have been my middle name for most of my life. I had to put all that aside, and then I had to decide that I was going to like myself no matter how I showed up. And once I did that, that removed the fear of self-recrimination. And when the fear of self-recrimination was gone, it was easy after that. It was fun. All right. I hope that was helpful, Helena. Thank you so much for being here. I know
Thank you.
you're 13 hours ahead of us in Asia. Anybody else want to say anything real quick? All right, I'm going to play us out with our song, and then we'll just come back for a last goodbye. So listen to the song. Sing along. The lyrics are on screen. All right, guys. I just, Lynn, do you want to say something? I saw you were unmuted. I muted you, but you have to unmute yourself. But do you want to say anything? I can't
Hi, it's
unmute.
okay. I'm gonna speak maybe next week.
All right, beautiful. I'm so glad you're here. Your microphone sounds good. Your video looks good, so we're good.
Okay, maybe I'll be better next time.
All right, great. Anybody else before we go? All right, so remember, guys, be bigger than you think you are today and every day. Every moment when you're challenged, it's another opportunity. Number one, to do things differently, to see yourself differently, to act and react differently. And number two, to forgive yourself if you don't do it perfectly. If you don't do it right, whatever that means, be your own best friend this week. All right, guys, I'm out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
See you
Thank
next
you,
week.
Peter.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Thanks for
Good
your
night,
time.
Peter.
Good night, guys.
Woo!
Good night.
Nice. I love it. All right, guys. See ya.